It has been said that teams do not rise to their goals, but fall to their systems. And in the case of today's guest, these systems have helped them grow their business by 20% in the first quarter of this year. This is the Philip Gagnon Show.
This is the #1 podcast for real estate brokers and leaders. You're listening to the Philip Gagnon Show.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Philip Gagnon Show. I'm your host, Philip Gagnon. With me today is the president and co-owner of Dickson Realty, Mr. Beau Keenan. How are you, Beau?
Philip, doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. So tell us, Beau, just for those of you that may not be familiar with Dickson, just tell us a little bit about your company and markets and how you guys are set up, just a little background on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a 40-year-old company based out of Reno, Nevada. The company itself was originally founded by Fiona Dixon Combs, kind of with a vision of helping in the luxury area of the market and also spending time on doing development. So the company kind of grew through being what was a luxury boutique firm and then helping to develop the area. I think we've developed close to 3/4 of the area in conjunction with builders, regional builders, and so forth. But over time, as kind of the regional builders went away, national builders came in. We've grown more to just focus on higher producing agents, as well as just using what we think is the best system, the ninja selling system, with our agents and building teams and individuals. So at this point, we have 10 different locations and about 330 agents in totality. We do a little over 1.3 billion in sales volume.
1.3 billion. That's amazing. And are you guys in multiple like MLSs and states and that kind of stuff?
We are. So we are, for the most part, Northern Nevada is kind of our region, which only has 2 different MLSs that we're a part of. But we do have a part of us that's called the Dickson Realty Truckee office, and they have 3 smaller locations in Truckee, Donner, and another area kind of called Gray Eagle.
And that's in California?
And those 3, correct, yeah, are in Northern California. They're just about 30 minutes away.
Okay. So logistically not too bad, but you obviously have some licensing issues and some other types of things like that you have to kind of contend with.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, absolutely. But not to the extent as I know some of our some of our other affiliates across the country have to deal with. But
Sure.
Yeah. And then we're going around the lake. So we yet to have an office right at the lake, but we'll be going around Lake Tahoe, which is a big part of our region as well.
Oh, okay. That's a beautiful area. How has the market been for you as of late? Talking specifically about Northern Nevada, because I know California has been shut down or was shut down for a time, but talking about Nevada for a second, how has things been for you?
So things have been well. We really saw, we had a pretty precipitous fall that middle of March when everyone kind of elected to shut down their economies per se. But we luckily were able to be deemed essential. So we kind of worked through, and we had about 30 to 40% less volume happening in the area and here at the company. But the last, I would say really beginning of June, as we started to open back up, it's just been gangbusters here. Our biggest downfall has been not having enough supply to keep up with the demand.
Yeah.
We thought we'd have pent-up demand, but what we didn't account for is pent-up demand of those who were now going to relocate here and thought about relocating here maybe a year, 2 or 3 years down the road. They've now upped their time frame for whatever reason to say, hey, we had more time to think about leaving where we're at because of the COVID situation and being at home, and we want to get to Reno quicker. So our demand is just, I would say, double what it was even going into the COVID situation. And we didn't have enough supply before COVID. So
this only made things worse.
It just amplified everything. It doesn't matter the price point for the most part. We're having multiple offers on everything and not just a couple, 5, 6, 7, 8, and sometimes even 10 offers on a property.
Wow. So I'm assuming everything's going at or above list price?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the numbers will change before June. Our asking price gauge was we'd get about 99.6% of asking price. I think we'll actually probably after the June numbers, it'll be over asking will probably be the norm.
will be the average. That's
will be the
crazy.
average. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. So, how were things leading into COVID?
Things were great. We were having record months leading up to COVID, and it felt really, really good. Of course, you and I had talked before, just our first quarter in 2020 relative to our first quarter of 2019. We were up about 7% in sides and 21% in volume, um, which was great. To see things paying off that we had spent building that time up in 2019, and we were just really excited for 2020. Still are, but of course, COVID has dampened that a bit.
Right. When you say you're up 7% in sides, 20% in volume, I mean, these are huge numbers because you guys are doing 1.3 billion. Is that what you said
Yeah, and
in
that's
volume?
yeah, correct. Combined between our California offices and Nevada offices, correct.
So a 20% increase, I mean, that's a huge number. And even a 7% increase on sides, that's also a big number because you guys are doing so many. So
Yeah.
where does that growth come from?
So a couple things. I think that 2019 for us was very much a strategic year in that we were planning my transition from kind of like a regional manager VP role to president with our former president Nancy Fennell, who's now CEO, and working with our leadership team to say, hey, what are our wildly important goals? And when you and I met, Philip, last year, we had a long conversation about exactly that we were trying to really just distinctly say, hey, here are two goals, because we know there will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. And we got caught up in
Always.
that, right? And
Yeah.
we were running everywhere. We were trying to get the new shiniest technology. We were trying to retain. We were trying to build culture. So I attribute it to the fact that we sat down, we had the team read that book, 40X, or the Four Disciplines of Execution. And we
Great
said,
book.
yeah, right. Phenomenal book. And so we said the two things that we really want to focus on in 2019 going into 2020 were recruiting. And we gave ourselves a certain goal. Hey, we're going to recruit this many experienced agents that fit our culture. Here's how we're going to do it. And then also productivity. We wanted our agents, and retention's key, but we felt that we've done a good job with retention overall. We typically don't lose agents due to being recruited away as much as maybe they get an opportunity like a new development with another company, for example. That maybe you can't compete with that, but they don't necessarily leave because they're not happy, or they'll leave because we've been here for so long. We have a lot of sunsetting agents. They've been with us for 25, 35 years and they're
Sure.
sunsetting. So we said, hey, how do we just help with our productivity numbers? Because we saw our agents were doing about 10 to 11 deals per agent. And, our goal was, how can let's get them to 15. So that was our second goal, was productivity. Get the agents to 15 deals per agent for the year.
So let's jump into that productivity goal for a second. So you
Mhm.
wanted to get your per person productivity from 10 and change or 11 and change
Uh-huh.
to 15.
Mhm.
So what were some of the strategies and systems and processes that you put in place to get there?
So first and foremost was ninja selling. We've always breathed and taught, ate, slept ninja, but what we hadn't done is we hadn't necessarily facilitated ninja at each sales office with the ninja skills groups that ninja tells you to do, and then build it into all of your sales meetings. We just made it more of everyone speaking the same language and doing it at every single meeting and making a point to talk about it and go back to it. I think what had happened is oftentimes people, say, hey, this is all the same old stuff. Well, it is, but it is because it works. And so we were hesitant to talk about it because people were kind of saying that, is there anything new? So we did our best to kind of attach it to the current situations that we were in with Ninja, but we went back to, we had Ninja installation brought in 2019 to the company. We had 55 agents go through it. The book came out 2 years ago. We took the book and gave it to most of our agents. Many agents had bought it on their own accord. And then we just built it into the sales meetings, and we just talked about the importance of flow, and that is keeping in touch with your clients. Because we just saw as more new agents got into the business, they were kind of nibbling around the edges of our current agent's business because they would lose one to a cousin here, right? Or a new friend, or a
Yeah.
friend that just got into the business here. and that you won't always be able to overcome that, but you can definitely hedge that off by staying in better contact with your clients. And so we built what we feel is a pretty fantastic slash automated program for our agents to keep in touch with their clients, where we do most of the work so they don't have to do that, because we know agents are terrible at that for the most part. They do great at facilitating the transaction, but before and after the transaction, they get so busy working in their business, they forget to work on it and to stay in touch with those people. And so
Absolutely.
in 2019, we built that flow system for our agents, and it's worked really well.
Oh, that's wonderful. So big fans of the Ninja process and system. Do you guys have an idea as to how you're trending in terms of hitting your goal for 2020 in spite
Yeah.
of COVID?
So again, I'll lead on the Q1 numbers, because we've had some agents that have had, even in this second quarter, have had record quarters for themselves. And, when they attribute that to just doing a lot more of the Ninja stuff as well. But overall, the company productivity in the second quarter won't be on track. But Q1, we were halfway there. We were about 12 and a half per agent. So we're getting to that 15, right? And then COVID hit, and we did 35% less business that
Hmm,
second quarter. That's just because 35 to 40% of our buyers and sellers just went away. Um,
sure.
so
And how are things looking into the third quarter?
yeah, they're looking great. I mean, we're getting close to 2019 numbers now as far as volume and sides. We just need more inventory, and that's where you and I have talked about this. I just kind of have put my nose to the grindstone to find development projects, and we have several coming online, which will help us to just build some inventory um, out of the ground as well. And so that, coupled with making sure agents are staying in the flow with their clients, is going to get us. I have no doubt by the end of the month here, we'll be past 2019 numbers, and starting back to where we were Q1, getting back to kind of that 20%, 7% increases in both volume and listing and sides.
So the other part of your goal that you had for 2020 was a recruiting goal.
hmm
So talk to us a little bit about what that kind of looked like, what you're looking for. How do you determine a fit?
So twofold. So we've always been kind of seen as the experienced agency in town, where we don't necessarily take a lot of new agents, and we kind of rested on the laurels of we were that company and people would come to us, and that kind of worked. But not being proactive, I realized once we got proactive that people were like, oh, you want to talk to me, that I'm willing to talk to you, but I wasn't going to take the time to talk without you coming to see me. So we pretty much said, okay, we want a high producing agent, but at the same time, we want them to culturally fit in that, our culture is one of collaboration, where the agents like to come to sales meetings. They like to come to the events, whether it's a barbecue or a baseball game, or even, a community service event. And so our agents for the last year, actually for several years now, have filled out on their transaction, and when they work with another agent, if they feel that they would be a good fit for Dickson or not. There's just too many agents, for me to know if that's the case or not. And so really a lot of it's based on reputation. So I have taken those that are productivity wise fit what we're looking for, and then we cross check that with those that have done deals with our agents. And typically they've all done deals with how many got yeses, they would be a good fit, or no, they wouldn't be a good fit. And I know we have a couple who are really high producing agents that I would love to have here number wise, but the agents just say, hey, they're just not a fit. And, I'll go talk to them about it, and they'll convince me, yes, that, yeah, they would help with your bottom line, but you really, culturally, you're not going to want them here. So those are the two things that we use to drill down to our target list.
How do you determine if an agent is going to fit culturally? Because that's such a nebulous type thing. How do you determine that?
Yeah. So when you do a transaction with someone else, right, you really do get to know them pretty well, because you see how organized they are, how emotional do they get during the transaction, how collaborative are they. When you have another agent that you can't get a hold of them, um, they're very curt with you. They're
Mm,
they're not wanting to, for example, share in let's say, just ways to help make the deal work. You're having repair issues, right? And you say, hey, listen, I'm willing to do this. Are you willing to help out? And they're saying, no, I won't help out, right? So I really, in the evolution of that transaction, that's how most of the agents can say, yeah, we feel comfortable that they're an agent who will go above and beyond for their clients. Because that's really our number one thing at Dickson, is our commitment to mastery and going above and beyond for the client. And I mean, you can pick that up pretty quickly, just in doing a transaction with another person. Now, we don't always get it right. Sometimes, there's people that we've talked to and I've even gotten pretty far along with and realized, hey, they do a great job for their clients, but at the same time, they're not really a team player. They don't see the value of coming to sales meetings. They don't see the value of always learning and growing. And we ask, every agent here to go to the Ninja installation. And if they don't want to do that, if they're not wanting to learn and grow, though they might have great satisfaction with their clients, then they're probably not a fit as well. So
Sure. Obviously, you want people to be a good fit for you. What is the advantage to an agent to wanting to go to these team building exercises? And obviously, the Ninja system, I think, has been proven. I mean, in countless organizations. But why? What is it about your culture that makes your agents successful or more successful?
I think it goes back to just relationship-based selling, which is what Ninja is around. And we definitely have agents that spend money on leads, like through Zillow and things like that, but very few. 95% of our agents, their business is built on a referral network, and they refer them like crazy because, again, it's going back to this going above and beyond for your client. And so as we get together and we collaborate, whether it's at a sales meeting, again, or just at a social function, our agents are constantly talking about, hey, I just found this new company, for example, BizBox, and I can order 30 boxes to 50 boxes for my clients to show up when we get an escrow on their doorstep that have my logo on it, but helps them get started in the moving process.
So, like
And
moving boxes.
yeah, they're just these
Oh,
moving
what a
boxes that
great idea!
your client typically, right? The process of moving is one that has always made me want to figure out a way to make it easier for the client, other than showing up and moving boxes. As much as you'd love to do that, we just don't have
Right.
time, right?
Yeah.
Or if you want to pay for the moving, it's just so expensive. So here, this is just was a neat, fairly inexpensive, quick way to share in the expense and the process of moving. And you just go online and you order it, you customize the boxes to your name, and they show up on their doorstep within 2 days. And it's great. We've gotten lots of pictures from clients that have shared pictures with like their kids being in the boxes, or they're like, we're so excited we got our boxes
Oh, that's awesome.
today. Those types of things, right? Those are the types of things that help you build a phenomenal experience for your client, who then they want to go out of their way to refer you to the next person. Where I think most agents, they kind of stop just right there. They don't quite get to that point where it's this Disney-esque experience. And while they'll be happy to refer you, if someone asks, they're not going to go out of their way. And so the
Right.
difference maker is, how do you make them want to, go out of their way and refer you? Because people love to be the person that say, hey, I have this guy or I have this gal, you've got to use them, right? If you don't create that experience, they're not going to do that. But if you do, man, it's the power of it's pretty phenomenal.
In talking, so you guys have been using 3 Data Pulse now since last latter part of last year. How has it been for you overall?
It's been great. So I mean, 3 Data Pulse, to weave into kind of the success that we've had, has been a big part of that success underneath, right? It's in the underbelly of the workings. That isn't this shiny tool that you're sharing with agents. They really have no idea that we, are working this on the back side of things. Um, so it kind of gets, I guess you could say, overlooked in the success of things. But for me, when you and I first connected, and again, we were talking about 40X, and we were talking about these things, I was looking for some way to be able to communicate with all my managers and all of our staff about these wigs. We didn't really have anything other than kind of like our Google Docs and Google Drive and emails, and it was just, everything was scattered, right? So what 3DP really helped with is it just helped organize what were our wildly important goals in a way that everyone became more succinct. And it talks about in 40X as well as the importance of cadence, right? The cadence of
Mm,
a team moving together with the goals that you have, measuring the lead measures, which then provide you the lag measures, which are essentially your goals. And 3DP was that perfect fit for us. Now, we haven't necessarily operated it perfectly. Like, I'll be completely honest, and you see the numbers. We can definitely get better at using it, but it has been such a breath of fresh air to have this system that we can all coordinate together on and work and use. And I'll tell you what, one of the aha moments for me just in using it was when COVID hit, and we had this mad rush to reach out to our agents more so than we had even in the past, right? Because now it was like, not only do we want to reach out to them to see how their business is doing, we just want to reach out to see how are they doing, like how are they personally doing. When you have 330 agents to do that and to account for that, I mean, that's difficult. But now we already had this system built in where we could easily have each manager and each admin reach out to a specific number of people, take the notes, put them into three data polls. Nancy and I could go in and we could see how people were doing without having to have or field, 200, 300 calls about each agent. So that was fantastic having that in place before the whole pandemic situation. But the other ways it's helped is recruiting. I personally am the main person recruiting at Dickson, and I've used that with your help to make it even better. We've tied in the MLS data now. We have heat maps to see kind of where people's main business is happening. And so to have that to upload all my recruiting efforts into now was great because I was just using Excel spreadsheets before. And so now I can go in and in my day, I can focus on retention and I can focus on recruiting in one platform. Is awesome. So there's been that benefit as well.
So you mentioned earlier increasing your per person productivity to almost 15. How has Three Data Pulse helped you guys get towards that goal?
Probably first and foremost is just some accountability for our managers, because a big part of that is we need our managers to coach. And I think our managers, they're happy to coach, right? But what they're not happy about doing is coaching and then reporting back to us as kind of the executives, because it takes time to do it. And
Sure.
not everyone likes accountability.
I'd say most people probably don't.
Yeah, most people probably don't, right? Yeah, maybe I was being too soft there. But this is a great accountability platform because it gives them, so there's a process to it now where we didn't really have a great process before. It was kind of more, hey, we're at this point of the year. Can you please just make sure you're doing this? We'd say that in the leadership meetings that we have once a month, and then you just go back to the whirlwind of stuff, and you come back to the next meeting. You're like, hey, did you do that? And they're like, oh yeah, we did it. No way to measure, right? And I think at the same time, when they did do it, they didn't have a great way to tell us as well. So really what allowed us for the productivity side of it is for the managers to actually have a place to go in with the plan that they built with their agent, or maybe the agent built and it's a fantastic plan and they don't have to do a whole lot, but they can upload it in there and they can give us the notes. And then when they go back in, all the notes are there. Where before, a lot of times it was either written down, chicken scratch on some scratch pad somewhere that they now lost, or they just didn't write it down.
Mhm.
And that has been our hardest. That has been the hardest habit to build. I'll be honest with you, Philip, about that. It's just the managers taking the time to fill it out because they don't always put in their coaching sessions in there. Like anybody, they're busy as well. So a lot of times, if they have back to back to back meetings and they don't put it in right after the fact, then sometimes they don't get to it, or they'll get to it maybe like a week later. But it's given them the ability to just hold themselves accountable, to put those notes in, and then so that we as the executive team can see what's going on and we can converse with, hey, well, really, maybe I noticed that Jenna was having a problem with this particular item, and the manager didn't think about a solution. And I could then comment and say, hey, did you have her, or did you recommend potentially have her using Cloud CMA this way? I think that would really help her to get more listings, dot, 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 dot. That conversation would have never happened because it would have been communicated to me as to what the agent was trying to work on in an effective way, right? It might come up in one-offs, but not in the
Not
amount that,
systematically.
yes,
Sure.
exactly, not systematically.
So, when rolling out an accountability system, obviously one of the concerns with that is how is my team going to adapt or react to this? How did your team receive the Three Data Pulse, the new system, and rolling this out and all that?
Most were very happy for it. They were excited for this. I think for communication's sake, I think that we all realize that in transactions, in leadership, management, communication's always key. And typically problems arise from exactly that, right? Miscommunication. And so, like any firm, we had our own miscommunication issues. And so I think they were excited for, first and foremost, a platform to communicate together that was more than just email and we could preserve notes and things, right? Where we had a little bit of pushback, and I was somewhat surprised, and you saw this firsthand, is we had, in particular, one admin who felt like we were in a way kind of spying on the agents. And she, in particular, really gets to know her agents very well. So, what I appreciate about her is that she is more than just helping facilitate the transactions for the agents, but she's really getting to know them. I mean, to the type where she's the type of person where if they're sick or they're having a hard time, I mean, she might go deliver dinner to them that night. As great as that was, she was saying, now if I get to know my agents that well and they trust me, and then I'm putting into the notes, hey, I know that such and such agent's having this personal problem, they might not trust me if I share that with you in this platform. I'd rather just come and just tell you because I don't want it to feel like I don't want them to think that I'm spying on them. And so we went round and round with her, right, as to the goal isn't to spy as much as it is to know how can we help, just like you're doing as you're finding out that information and you're taking them dinner, that's great, but how can we, the leaders, even potentially do the same? Maybe someone will need 5 nights of dinner, and Nancy and I are happy to help with that or help orchestrate it. So she's gotten somewhat better at that, at realizing that again, there's a difference between the big brother aspect that she was worried about it being and the just genuinely wanting to help the agents. And we can't help them if we don't know what their concerns are, right? So hopefully that makes sense. But that's kind of where we got some pushback, is we just had that for fear that agents might think that we have this platform that we're spying on them with, and which is silly. But this, and then the second was just the time that it does take, because it does take time. And I think we found that they're recording it somewhere, which you always point out, right? Hey, well, they're recording it typically somewhere. And so
Right.
this is just changing where they record it. But we found that they weren't always recording it somewhere. So yes, it was a bit of a habit change to not just be a different platform to record it in, but to actually record it. And they might think they recorded it because they had the conversation and maybe they told their manager about it. But telling is different than putting in writing where all eyes in the management team can see it, right?
Well, especially for yourself, you're going to try and go back and have a, sort of a continued thread of conversation from week to week and month to month. If you're not writing it down, it becomes kind of hard to remember what you said, especially when you've got, 20, 30, 50, 100 agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, of our 10 offices, 5, 6 of them have more than 30 agents. And so that's very much the case. Yeah, that's just exactly that.
So, Bo, in looking at sort of an ROI standpoint, how much of your successes or business, if you had to kind of quantify what Three Data Pulse has done for your business, what would that look like?
So I'd have to go back to, again, that Q1, kind of the Q1 numbers that we discussed earlier. And I wish we had had a normal Q2 for all kinds of reasons, not just for the health and
Right.
safety of all, but also just because we were, setting records, breaking new highs for the company. But I think that Three Data Pulse, what was instrumental in helping us achieve what was essentially, 20% increase in volume, 7% increase in sides, which translated to 20% increase in GCI compared to that same quarter the last year. And again, we had the same amount of volume happening in that first quarter as we did the year before. So it wasn't just that we were always, and I say the marketplace had the same amount of volume, right? It wasn't the marketplace was growing in volume, but we actually were
Your
getting a
guys'
bigger
market
chunk.
share was growing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, a bigger chunk of it. And so Three Data Pulse helped us to organize our wildly important goals, which are the recruiting and the productivity, which helped us get there, right? And I think it'll only help us attain those same numbers in Q3 and Q4, and hopefully even more. And you've already seen that I've been happy to refer Three Data Pulse to pretty much anyone. I mean, I've talked to lots of people in our various groups that we're a part of across the country to say, hey, give Philip a call. You need to check it out. This is how it's helped us. I promise you won't be disappointed, but you have to be committed to use it. It's not a system where you can, everyone gets access to it and then you have great results, because it's kind of what you told me. Hey, if you put good in, you're going to get good out. But if you
Right.
if you don't put enough time and energy into it, you don't make the notes and make the commitment to recording all the people that come to the events and stuff, then the scores that you're going to get for your agents, they're just going to be off, and it just won't be good information. So if you can get your organization to really commit to using it, then I think the question of the ROI isn't even going to be a question. It'll just be how much will the ROI be? And that will be really up to you and your team committing to it. And so that's why I'm excited as well, because I know we can even do a better job. And I think that's why our ROI will even be more in the future as we just get better at it and we create better habits with it. And we all know it takes a while to actually build long-lasting habits, right? And COVID threw a wrench in things, and there was all kinds of fires we were putting out that had nothing to do with anything. So
Right.
I'm so great to get back to some normalcy now, and I look forward to just using it even more so. I think that's the biggest testimony that I can give, is referring 3Data Pulse. And so on this broadcast, or just through this communication, I hope if there is someone that is listening and is thinking about, how could I implement kind of some more accountability for my leadership team, and what can we do to help implement our wildly important goals? I would say 3Data Pulse is hands down the answer, and fully welcome any questions or comments as well. If anyone wants to reach out to me, Philip, give him my information, and I'd be happy to talk to him about just our process.
Yeah. What is your email address? If somebody wanted to reach out to you.
Yeah, so B for Beau Keenan, which is Keen as in Nancy, A-N as in Nancy, at DicksonRealty.com. And Dickson is Dickson Realty.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Beau, for taking the time to chat with us and share with us the story of your brokerage and all the great successes that you guys have had up until now, and wish you all the best for the rest of 2020. And no doubt you guys will crush those goals that you set forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time. And one last shout out, just to say, I appreciate this isn't 3Data Pulse's system, but this is you, Philip. And I just appreciate our monthly meetings and the value that you've provided to me beyond just 3Data Pulse has been great. There's several ideas that I've taken away from our conversations that I've implemented that have been a huge help. So again, I appreciate your time. Just appreciate your willing to think outside the box with me and help share your great ideas. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Beau. And thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
This was the Philip Gagnon Show. Be sure to visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Philip Gagnon Show and join in on the conversation, access the show notes, and discover some fantastic bonus content. The Philip Gagnon Show.